All right, now let's go to the push to stop the U.S. from falling off the so-called fiscal cliff. Now, the weekend saw a lot of talk, but no deal, meaning that we're just 43 days, as I talk to you tonight, from the cliff's edge. You know, Andrew's rolling his eyes because it's not really. We'll get in that in a second. But for all the talk of the dire consequences we've heard about the cliff, a check of recent headlines read less like a political roller coaster and a lot more like, I don't know, promising advancement. Let's go to the Atlantic. The shape of a deal to avoid fiscal cliff is emerging. CNBC, global stocks and commodities rise on fiscal cliff hopes. Boston Globe leaders express hopes fiscal cliff will be averted, and at CNN, both sides point to bipartisan as fiscal cliff deadline looms. All right, usually at the same time last year, it was a heck of a lot less hopeful. Now, in fact, the only serious news this weekend that pointed to issues with this cliff was an interview with Nancy Pelosi where the House Minority Leader suggested Democrats wouldn't yield on top-end taxes.
Could you accept a deal that does not include tax rate increases for the wealthy?
No. The president has been very clear that the higher income people have to pay their fair share.
All right, now that leads us to the potential sticking points, the deal points here, that have to be answered if you're going to actually get a deal done, like top-end taxes. Will this deal come together as Pelosi wants on passing and raising top-end rates or just top-end revenue? It's a distinction, but with a difference. Or how about the deadline? Could a deal be worked out by New Year's? What happens to the economy between now and then? Can we afford to wait instead of just passing, let's say, an extension but not wait till 12/31 to do it? And if there is a delay, how bad will the impact be in 2013, and how quickly will it get really bad? Also, what kind of a deal at the end of the day, most importantly, are we going to look at here? A grand bargain totally changes tax and spending structure, a deal only on taxes, or on taxes with some spending cuts that we heard promised go part and parcel of this? Will lawmakers just kick the can and deal with the difficult stuff later? Sound familiar? And what will both sides give up here at the end of the day to get this deal done? And politically, will Republicans agree to the tax hikes and cuts in defense? And will Democrats agree to not just cuts in Medicare, but also Social Security, among other things? All right. Round the table here before 12/31, and the options, Gian-Carlo, was they get a deal or they get an extension that they agree to in the next 2 weeks. What do you think?
I think they get both, and here's what I mean. I think that each side gives up enough to show to the country that they're serious. But hopefully, if we're going to do this right, we're not going to get it done between now and the end of the year. There's just not enough time to do this in a responsible manner.
So what does it look like?
I think it looks like, again, both sides giving up something, the administration agreeing to cut spending or at least agree to address entitlements in the 113th Congress, and Congress agreeing to some leadership in Congress agreeing to some means of raising revenue.
But is that actual rate hikes?
I don't know the answer to that. I said on your show earlier that I believe it will just be a cap, a means testing of deductions, and not raising the rates. The Republicans in Congress have gone from revenues completely off the table to revenue is on the table, and the administration hasn't moved off of their perch of not extending the Bush tax cuts for those over 250.
Andrew?
First of all, keep in mind that we do damage every day that we wait between now and the 31st before we get a deal done. Remember back to last year with the debt limit fight when we wound up hurting the credit limit of the country. We never actually failed on our obligations. We never actually went past the debt limit without getting a deal done. But it was the threat of it, the potential of it, the uncertainty in the markets that we kept hearing about.
Between now and the end of the year?
I hope we get a quick extension that says, some of these cliff issues get pushed off 6 months, and that gives us a framework to start negotiations. Something that stops that bomb from going off at midnight on the 31st, because you got to get that done sooner rather than later. If you try to do more, it's going to drag the entire process.
So just an extension, no deal.
You might not get a deal. You might not get an extension until the week before New Year's, and that doesn't help.
But Dom, same question to you.
There will be a deal. I don't believe it will be an extension. I believe it will be a deal. The president has to act now while he has the political capital to do so. God only knows what will happen if they extend it. Both sides may go back to their trenches, and then nothing gets done.
But
there will be a deal.
You and I both know he doesn't really care anymore what the left part of the party thinks, but he also don't want to look weak because he made it clear. You heard Pelosi, what she
Right.
said. He's got to raise rates.
That's
on
why
the
it's
top
not
end.
surprising what Pelosi said. All she was doing was mirroring exactly what the president said.
Okay, so does he get before the end of the year 37.5% for the top end?
I'm almost like you. I'm not willing to guess. I'm not exactly sure, but there will be an increase. He's going to be able to say that he delivered on the pledge that he ran on and that Republicans are meeting him halfway, and
he
vice
will-
versa.
And he will like to be able to say to a deal that, yes, I agreed with them. There's going to be some change to Social Security. There'll be some changes to Medicare. He won't be able to get that done before 12/31 because you're right. It's way too complicated.
You might be able to get a sequestration deal done, similar to what we had with the thing that led into the fiscal cliff this year. You could get a deal where it says we're going to have this number of cuts to Social Security and Medicare and this amount of tax increase if a deal isn't done by X date.
All right. Now, I'm interested in this next segment. When we come back, we believe there'll be some deal here, okay? And if we believe that, you're optimistic that it's a different Congress than the one that we had before the elections in November. So what does that mean about the next 4 years? We'll agree to this much. This president, he believes in legacy and he likes big idea things. We saw that with Obamacare. What could happen over the next 4 years? We're already getting some hints here about where he might go and where Congress might go with him. We'll get into that after this.